Hey everybody, welcome to the Happy Harvest Homestead. The topic I'm going to talk about is a bit strange and probably doesn't apply to most people. I have myself experienced this thing, and I figure at least someone out there may be experiencing this or might accidentally fall into the trap of this, and I would feel bad not sharing my knowledge that I have gained through much hardship. This video is a warning against creativity. At first, that might sound weird. You've probably heard me talk before about how very creative of a person I am, and you can see the results of that creativity from my project ideas, to the building styles I do, to the ways I raise my animals, to the weird types of jewelry I wear sometimes. I'm just so creative and I keep thinking of cool ideas, and in most areas of my life, that's a good thing. There is one huge problem, though, I have come across with being too creative and letting your creativity run too wild, thinking it's only a good thing and not seeing the other side of it. And I've mentioned this briefly in a couple videos before, but I want to dive into more detail and compile all my thoughts into one video. I have been slowly working on and perfecting the perfect rabbit colony setup. I hate raising rabbits in cages and much prefer more ethical setups that make both me and the rabbits super happy, and a nice big colony is just my cup of tea. My first colony was pretty much a failure in the middle of a rainstorm when the rabbits were digging out and the tarp I had as a roof was filling with water and breaking, and I had to rush out there and was getting drenched. As I struggled to save the situation, I realized I needed to be more creative and innovative and think of a better setup. So I did, and made my second setup, which was in the barn, and the second setup was much better. A lot of the problems from the first setup were not problems in the second one, but there were still problems, mainly rabbits digging where they were not supposed to. So eventually I decided to fix that problem by building what should have been my final rabbit colony, which was a solid plywood floor with bedding on top. And of course, being super creative, I added a shelf and a ramp and all these little doodads to make it more fun and cool. And for a long while, it worked perfectly. I think that's the longest colony I've ever had, and I loved it so much. And this is where my creativity gets in the way, though, and caused me years, literal years worth of sorrow and suffering, and honestly, lots and lots of tears, too. Looking back, I should have been content with a good colony, but instead, being super creative, I was like, hey, this colony has a solid floor so the rabbits can't dig. Now I'm missing out on all the benefits rabbits do get of digging in the right places, so I'm gonna rip out my awesome colony that works so well, that I love so much, that the rabbits are doing so well in, and build a completely new colony. And that new colony was a disaster. The stress caused by the move, paired with a sudden freeze in the middle of April, caused most of our breeders and most of our grow-outs to get Pasteurella and have to be culled. Then the rabbits were refusing to dig at all for most of the time the colony was there. We had major problems with the rabbits digging through and into the deep bedding system that I thought I loved so much, and eating the moldy bedding underneath for some reason. And then we accidentally got some contaminated hay, and again, most of our breeders and most of our kids passed away. Then I unknowingly did the right thing and took the rabbits out of that colony, but it took me one more round of one final super creative little idea. I tried a dirt floor colony for a couple months, but it didn't take that long for me to realize that was a terrible idea as well. Ugh. And now, all of that headache and loss and tears and frustration has finally led to this colony, what I consider my best colony ever, with just a solid floor and no bedding on top. The basic idea is almost exactly like my old awesome perfect colony from a couple years ago, except for that I had to put it in a different spot. And I kind of don't want to speak too soon, but so far, things are going amazingly. Except for the little side note of our rabbits not breeding. But that's not the fault of the housing, it's the fault of the rabbits themselves. We've had no escapees. Even Acrobat, the escape artist rabbit, has not escaped from this colony, even though I kind of thought she might. Our buck is getting along with all of our does, and the does are getting along with each other. Edelweiss, our youngest breeder, is growing super nicely. She is huge. She's almost as big as a full-grown rabbit, and she's only, 4 months old? And though no other rabbits have given birth in this colony so far, since Leah's litter, best of all, Leah's litter is doing amazing. All of her 9 babies are still alive, and their fur is coming in, and their eyes have just opened. She is still nursing them, and all the other rabbits are still leaving them alone. Izzy's weird stint of adding a whole bunch of fur to their nest did no harm, and nobody's attacked the litter or eaten them or chewed off their ears anymore. Leah's being such a good mom, the babies are being such good babies. Oh, I'm so happy with this setup. So far, it seems to be working just as well as my old solid floor setup. But honestly, if I had to choose between this colony and staying with my old colony, I would totally choose the old colony. Then, instead of 3 years of dead rabbits and failed housing, I would have probably had 3 awesome years of loads of kits and healthy breeders. So to all those who are creative people like me, beware that your creativity doesn't get out of hand and your strive for perfection doesn't accidentally ruin the good things you have now. Thanks for watching.